thought process, I think, mainly due to Marquez, that 25, then, you know, you weren't going to be looked at. Do you think that maybe Johan has...
For me, because it was like, boah, yeah, 30, too old, way too old, no chance anymore. And it's as well very good to see that Valentino Rossi is still there and win races, you know, that helps for sure. My first MotoGP experience, so I have to say that it was good. And work now over this year, it's also impressive for me to see.
Well, we're just seeing here Maverick Vinales, of course, still fastest his time from yesterday. Marc Marquez has improved this morning, second quickest. Lorenzo has just been on a couple of laps as well. He's improved. Other riders that have made better efforts today: Pedrosa, Pol Espargaro, Bradley Smith. And nothing going at the moment for Cal Crutchlow, Tito Rabat.
But I think many people understand now that not everybody is a Marquez, you know, and some guys maybe need a little bit longer to learn things.
My other question, which isn't linked, is regarding Moto2. Quite relieved that you're leaving Moto2 when
Acceleration is high, even in 5th gear still, or 4th gear, it's very high, so you don't have really time to think different things. But at the moment you need to get used to it, you need to get used to that speed, that you still have the capacity in your head to use the buttons, you know. It was not like that it was bored or you're boring on the straight. That's absolutely perfect for me, that's right. I really can take these two guys as a reference. And even on Seppa, next year in Seppa, I will have a little bit, you know, they will have 4 days more than me on this bike, but still it's perfect to have them as
Moto2 and perhaps Moto3 as well. Are there any particular riders, other than the obvious Joan Mir, that really you're looking at and thinking, wow, he could be a star of the future?
Yeah, I mean it was like, if I separated, you know, the last year in the Moto2.
Marquez, of course, we know will be strong. It's going to be, you've left a really strong championship behind, haven't you, for next year?
But I really have to say the Moto2 class anyway, it's year by year, it's a really competitive class, it's a very good class, and it's a very good school, that's what I think as well. Yeah, as you said, also the Rook is going to be strong, and also like Sam Lowes is going back, for example. This is very interesting for me to see, but the class anyway, it's a very good class, that's for sure.
And as a Calex rider, you were racing close to Miguel in a number of races this year. What
were your feelings on that day, and whether or not you felt after that race that maybe the championship was gone?
It was difficult. I mean, the overseas races start, and it was...
When we got to overseas, how the championship could close based on how well you did in the Island last year, but obviously we got to Japan and the weather was really, really bad. It looked to us like in the commentary box you had severe visibility problems as well, so just take us through.
Up a really good feeling. We had to work a lot with the bike and we didn't find the way finally, and I was struggling in the race. We tried to take out too much, or I was asking too much from the bike, from the setup, so we were building, and I never could build up a really good feeling with the bike. And then I had some...
When you get on the bike in Malaysia, in Sepang?
First step is now going home tomorrow morning here from Valencia back to Switzerland. My physiotherapist is at home, and I'm gonna work with him a lot, every day working, try to keep the movement in the feet in Malaysia.
Well, I think I speak for Matt and a lot of fans in saying that we wish you a good winter. We hope that your recovery goes well, and we're really excited to see you jumping on board the bike in Sepang. We'll be covering that, I'm sure. And
you know, I had the surgery. I have 2 screws in the foot right now. The problem is it's stable for load. It's just stable for movement. So I need to keep working. Need to keep patient. Try also to keep the fitness.
Lunch break that we will take, and then of course we'll bring you the final couple of hours of action. Aleix Espargaro, whilst we've been chatting to Tom Lewis, put in a time there, a 30.889, and that is about a 10th off his fastest time from yesterday. Jorge Lorenzo, as we saw, has made some progress.
As we said, wish him a speedy recovery over the winter. Look forward to seeing him back in action in the end of January in Malaysia. Down to you, Dylan.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, guys. I think it's worth talking to another rider who stepped up from the Moto2 class. I'm down here with Xavier Simeon in his box at the moment. Xavier, exciting time.
I can put in the entry corner because it looks like the Michelin front tire has so much grip. So, and also the riding style in that area is quite different from Moto2. Normally with Moto2 you have to go on the corner with a lot of braking, but here you have to release the with how we are riding. And like I say, at the moment moment I'm just focused on the position, how to brake, and when I will have more like this normal, I will say, I will try to go a little bit faster.
Finally, Xavier, you said taking it a little bit easy. Of course, you have been injured. When do you...
At the door.
We just heard from Tom Luthi, Matt, talk about, of course, the fact that he's got that great relationship with Gilles Bigot, his crew chief, who comes over to join him. We know that Taka Nakagami has got a great crew chief and loads of experience in Roman. You do have to, it's not something that should be overlooked, is it? Because Franco, you know, spent 2 years with Pete Benson and they developed a brilliant relationship, one that, of course, led him to win the World Championship this year.
Pete Benson is one of the most respected crew chiefs in the whole MotoGP pad, but at the end of the day, he loves working with young riders and bringing them up into Moto2. And what a chance to get hold of Joan Mir. You know, he's already, I'm not going to say a rough diamond, you know, he's already the sort of polished gem. His actually doesn't work out between Ghibellini and Morbidelli. But right, I mean, Tom Luthi, it's very, very important. You know, you get it with somebody that you trust implicitly. You know, a crew chief who's formed a good relationship. Yeah, there was a bit of a tug-of-war going on between Mir and Morbidelli. But the good thing for Morbidelli is Diego Ghibellini is Italian. There's going to be no language barrier there whatsoever. He's already integrated into the Mark VDS system. He worked with Tito Rabat last year. That's his 5th crew chief in 5 years. So you're not forming those relationships. You're not forming those bonds. I mean, some riders will go through their entire career working with the same crew chief. You know, look at Santi Hernandez, who's worked with Mark from the get-go. Yeah, and other riders like Scott Redding, they have not got that continuity. And when you're trying to learn different methods in different factory teams and learn different personalities, you know, sometimes you can be chalk and cheese. It's difficult to, you know, form those new.
The first rider who's ever worked with it, he cannot 100% understand. I mean, he's so laid back. He should be competing in Luge week in, week out. So let's hope that that relationship can blossom. But it is an area, I think, of motorcycle racing, and also with this rider.
Same emotions what he would do if he's won a Moto2 Grand Prix. He's very, very, very good at keeping his emotions in check. Nothing really ever gets or seems externally to get Franco Morbidelli flustered.
Following each other out now. Where have we seen this before?
Is Lorenzo going first with suggested mapping 8 on the dashboard? I'm stepping away from that conversation, to be perfectly honest. Fair to say that there's been a lot of column inches over the last...
People are sort of sliding one way or the other when it comes to what was right and what was wrong. Either way, it's all in the past now, and they've got to focus on what happens now in the future.
Well, if there is any animosity, he's got any issue to run.
Cal Crutchlow, I'm presuming, given the colour of his bike there, that this is the 2018, and he's just posted not only his fastest time of the test so far, but that time is actually faster than...
Pretty happy when he got his first taste of that 2018 factory Honda yesterday. He was hoping that it didn't negate their main strength on that package this year, which is brake. Do know that the Hondas tended to have on board with Daviccio. So then through his his latest run, this is where it all went horribly wrong for him in the race on Sunday. Came through turn 7 hot, ran off the circuit at turn number 8, and then just toppled over at slow speed.
That was quite unusual, but of course then you've got Valencia as well. There does seem to be certain circuits where the Ducati, they just sort of accept the fact that it's not going to work.
Well, one key the year before, he took that unbelievable last lap victory over Marc Marquez in Japan, again in the rain conditions. Now look at his 4 dry race victories this year. Dovizioso, Mugello, Barcelona.
Who was on the circuits where perhaps the Ducati does not perform. He doesn't do what Marc Marquez does. A bad day for Marc Marquez tends to be a 3rd or a 4th, whereas Dovizioso over in Austin, a 6th place, an 8th at Saxon.
It were wins.
Guys, I'd just like to bring you down to the Yamaha box. I've got Mayo Merigali here right now. Mayo, we've just seen Maverick go out on the 2016 chassis with the aero fairing on. You seem to struggle so much, and ever since you started this test, things are going quite a lot better with quite similar bikes.
Yes. No, it has been also it's difficult, and it looks like that we suffer this kind of condition much more than our competitors. This is my point of view.
And at the moment, do you feel
16? So they have to find the best combination between the And what we are going to test here will be tested also in Sepang because
offer any kind of obvious explanation really as to why they are so much faster and so much more competitive in this test. Yes, a little bit baffling, and of course if it's confusing for the ride in Assen. So there was an awful lot of work to do inside that factory Yamaha camp.
It grated so much. You could tell when the question was asked to Lynn Jarvis in the team manager's press conference earlier in the weekend. You know, there was...
Went their way on Sunday with the 2 crashes for the factory Ducati pairing.
Remarkable really, isn't it? But yeah, work to do still for the Movistar Yamaha team.
I guess at least while Maverick Vinales is out on circuit, it's a bit of free. Joan Mir's personal manager, well-known representative of several rides. In fact, I think actually he's also Maverick Vinales' manager. So I think there's going to be forming an orderly queue to the door of Mr. Sanchez over the next few months. Now he's got Joan Mir on his books.
Xavier Simeon here. Dylan spoke to him earlier on. His first time out on a machine, of course, on the MotoGP bike. He has got experience on 1000cc motorcycles. Don't forget, former champion at Superstock 1000, confirmed to be the team in Moto3.
Yeah, and I was just reliably informed, thanks actually to a former Moto3 world champion himself, Danny Kent, who I guess is watching at home back in the UK.
17 machine, that is team colours, but on the other machine, this is where we seem to have a new style. Now it looks the same from the outside, but normally when we see a new one there, that means that there is something different.
They're quick before Neil Spalding barges you out of the way, Dylan. I'm not sure if he'll have spotted that yet, but I'm sure he'll be there pretty quickly. Here is Marc Marquez then. Still some comparisons going on for the world champion, world superbike as well.
Yeah, current Japanese superbike champion. So he's got a few domestic on his CV, hasn't he, Takahashi?
So he does okay. They're not consistent lap times that would get him particularly high up in Sunday's race, but this is his first time on a MotoGP machine. And I'm going to try. He was making sure he doesn't drift off too far.
Yeah, that is his personal manager in the grey hoodie there, Paco Sanchez, who in the future is going to be a very busy man negotiating contracts for Joan Mir.
Probably up to 2. So, it just looks so effortless sometimes for Marc Marquez to be lapping in the sort of mid to late 130s. He makes it look so easy.
Everybody else race media commitments. I think about 4 hours after the race, and he was still in his leathers doing live interviews for the national broadcast here, Movistar, and it was unbelievable. 4 hours after the Grand Prix had finished, Barcelona, they said, "Is everything okay, Mark?" Because he said, "We're actually your hair." He said, "It can't be. I'm only 24." Dylan.
Guys, I don't know if you've seen Takaki Nakagami's bike. No, actually not the one you're seeing on screen right.
I think it goes unnoticed quite often that Marc Marquez, Danny Pedrosa, of course, they're not particularly tall riders, and Cal Crutchlow's not exactly 6 foot either. No. So Nakagami clearly look to try and make a few adjustments.
Good in that first half of the season. His second half of the season, absolutely brilliant. If you look from, well, Barcelona onwards, wasn't it really? Second the race in Barcelona, then he switched to a chassis that was preferred more than the Ducati.
Yeah, Marc Marquez, I'm just looking at some of his stats from the year. Obviously, he was a fair distance down after the races due to what happened in Argentina.
Go to the summer break, we're going to be leading the World Championship. Bearing in mind, there was 3 races prior to the summer break where he had to overhaul a 37-point deficit. He said he looked at Santi Hernandez and went, "You are completely crazy. There is no way." And once he gets a bit of momentum back into his game, Marc Marquez, he's just unstoppable. If you look, Steve, from Barcelona, there was only 1 race that he didn't finish off on the podium, and that was...
So we see here Scott Redding exit pit lane. The thing you mentioned about Dovizioso taking advantage of situations at circuits where Ducati was strong, Marc Marquez continues to cap his own mind. I mean, of course there are pressures involved, it's not just as easy, but it makes such a huge difference to a championship when you can look at it and say, well, there's 50 points already.
Well, what has it been in Austin? 5 years there. 5.
That new rear exhaust pipe and a much bigger air intake on the front on that bike, even for him, in comparison to his 2017 machine.
I think you might be comparing it to the one that Marquez has. It looks bigger because of because it's all the front. I mean, I'll have another closer look once he's back in the box, but if you...
31.1 is his fastest time of the day so far. It's exactly the same as what he posted yesterday, and very similar to fastest times that he was posting for most of his teammate for the 2018 season, Scott Redding. Goes across the line there, no improvement. Scott Redding times today at 32.6 in particular moment. As he said to Dylan earlier, it is taking a while to try and get that transition right. And as Matt Whiteley points out, not only has he had 5 different crew chiefs, we'll be back with you for the final 2 hours of session. No personal best laps coming in at this particular moment in time. Number of riders still in pit lane. You know, Pedro.
Yeah, big year, I think, 2018 for Scott Redding, Steve. It'll be his 4th year in the MotoGP World Championship.
So many fans worldwide tweeting about Dani Pedrosa yesterday. I think every year his fans are desperate for Dani to mount a serious title. We said and talked about it at length yesterday. Team Honda was absolutely everything that he had ever dreamed of. There wouldn't be too many people disappointed in the paddock to see Dani Pedrosa actually launching a proper title challenge to the last round.
Yeah, Dani is a very, very popular rider. Does probably the fastest that's never actually gone through and got the job done in terms of the MotoGP crown. Loves this Ricardo Tormo circuit, Dani Pedrosa. 54th in his Grand Prix career, time with Mick. Problem here for Andrea Iannone, then on the factory Suzuki. Missed the whole of yesterday with a stomach bug, did Iannone, but instead of kin. Comes this very tricky left-hander now on the brakes, gets it a little bit out of shape going in, a little bit unsettled. And down he goes for Andrea Iannone. That was the corner, of course, where Valentino Rossi, about 40 minutes, as Steve said, until we take a lunch break as Andrea Dovizioso starts spraying gravel all over the circuit. Looks like he's going to be able to ride that motorcycle back to the Suzuki garage. He had a couple of crashes here on his Suzuki chassis. Is Andrea, and he finished a pretty disappointing season, very, very strongly actually, did the Italian. Although he did not have a podium finish all year. Last time we saw Andrea in MotoGP by his teammate Max Rins, who's also out there circulating after problems himself yesterday. He was also laid low by the same virus, Rins. He's 14th at the moment on this day. Aero package on the front end.
Talking about fairing, Steve, I just wanted to confirm, so I had it is quite deceptive to the eye with Dani Pedrosa's fairing, but it does look 20 centimeters or so longer than the original style. That is probably the one visual thing I can tell you about. And just as Iannone has come back into the box, not an awful lot of damage there, just a little bit on the left foot peg, as well as the fairing. Well, I'm not supposed to call it winglet, the aero package just on the left-hand side.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dylan.
You see life differently. We get it.